Welcome back to the Capitol. Thank you for being here. We, as you know from the press release, have an agreement between the House and the Senate on the budget. Given the circumstances with the oil and gas revenue and also with the global pandemic, we did an excellent job of protecting core services, including education. And I want to thank Speaker McCall and his leadership, his team, and Roger Thompson, my appropriations chair, for the work they have put in. This budget that you will see today represents hours and hours and months of work and a constantly shifting amount. Originally, we were thinking we were going to be $200 and some odd million down, then $400 and some odd million down, and then the Board of Equalization met and gave us a $1.3 billion number from the February certification, as you're aware. We have absolutely protected core services, and we have balanced the budget in a very meaningful way. We couldn't have done it without the work of the House, and I would like to bring up Speaker McCall to give his perspective.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President Pro Tem. Appreciate your remarks, and ladies and gentlemen, it has been an honor to work with the Senate over the past few weeks. Although we have not been in the building every day during this this constitutional session, our teams in the legislature have been working every day remotely to put together a budget to fulfill our constitutional duty. The budget is the responsibility of the legislature. And what you will see in the details of the budget is what is being considered is the overall condition of the state of Oklahoma and primarily its people. A year ago, nobody anticipated the COVID-19 situation that we would face today that has disrupted our state's economy. It has disrupted the people of Oklahoma's health. And the legislature feels like it's its duty to stabilize the fiscal picture of the state of Oklahoma to the best of its ability, and that is what is conveyed in this budget. We know that the people of Oklahoma are hurting, they are concerned, there is uncertainty, and what the legislature's responsibility to do is to give those people certainty about the core services that the government provides. And so I'm very appreciative of President Pro Tem Treat in the Senate, his AB team, our AB team in the House of Representatives, Chairman Kevin Wallace, Vice Chairman Kyle Hilbert, and our staffs who assist us in drafting the legislation to ensure that it's constitutional and ready to advance. So thank you for the opportunity to say a few words on the budget today. This is a team effort, and I appreciate the leadership in the Senate and those members working so well and closely with the members of the House. At this time, it's my honor to introduce to the podium Senator Roger Thompson, who is the chair of the Senate Appropriations and Budget Committee, to talk to you about more details of the budget following the House Appropriation Chair, Representative Kevin Wallace. Senator.
Thank you. Certainly glad that you're here, and it's good to be here at the Capitol today. And some of our colleagues we welcome back for Chairman Wallace and his team and the Senate team. We've never left, and that's a good thing. You notice we're working from the letter that we received from the governor and from the Board of Equalization stating that we had a $1.366 billion deficit. That is not the February BOE number, but based on the BOE meeting, we are using that number to begin our budget. And so we started at the very beginning what we would have to do to make sure that we maintain core services for Oklahoma, like education and health care, the health department, making sure that we are putting together programs that put people back to work in the state of Oklahoma. Some of you have sat in this room for a number of years, and you know we're coming off of one good year. And before that, we've had a lot of bad years, and we've cut agencies 25 to 40%. So we start looking at revenue to be able to fill in the budget this year. We not only looked at some of like the rainy day fund and the revenue stabilization fund, but we've also looked at some apportionments. And so you'll see some of that in the budget as well, as with the roads fund. Very thankful for our subcommittee chairs who worked hard with their agencies and with all members, making sure that the budget is not hurting people. That's my major concern at a $1.3 billion deficit, that we're not hurting people, we're able to come together. So we actually put together about a $7.8 billion budget. I think you have a breakdown of all of the agencies before you and the percentage of cuts of some of those agencies. So that's kind of an overview. We'll be ready to entertain your questions in a few minutes. It's been an honor for me to be able to work with Chairman Wallace. We realized where we were from the very beginning, and we were in constant contact. We were not in the Capitol. Just simply talking through a lot of give and take on both sides. And I'm telling you, I believe in the situation we're in that the people of Oklahoma won this year by having a budget before you. Chairman Wallace.
Thanks, Senator Thompson. Good morning, everyone. It is a pleasure to be here. Welcome everybody back in the building. It's been a nonstop process. As stated before, numbers have been very fluid. Through the process, we did stick with the numbers and letter that we received from the governor. I want to start by commending our staff and our sub-chairs. This is the third approach on a budget. It seems like we've had 4 sessions within the session this year, but a tremendous amount of work, and it is a product that does protect core services. I will tell you, there's never been a budget that I've loved, and of course I don't love this one, but from where we started, if you look at cross-board cuts of 17% down to basically a common cut of about 4%, this is truly an innovative and creative budget that we looked at every source of revenue possible, including the apportionments. Senator Thompson mentioned that briefly earlier. It is very creative, I will say that for sure. The chairs, both in the House and Senate, in the past 3 years since I've been appropriations chair, have had a better relationship, better dialogue. The legislature is working like a well-oiled machine. I'm very thankful for that, and the product that we're delivering these days for the people of Oklahoma is definitely an impressive budget. So I know there will be a lot of questions and details when we get down into it. The one thing I'd like to mention on the education, if you look at Common Ed, is about a 2.5% cut of $78 million. You take the federal dollars coming into the program of 160.9 plus the 39.9 the governor has, it will actually be an increase of over 3% for funding for education, even though it's reduced appropriations. So a lot of details, and I'm looking forward to the questions to get really down to the matter of the budget. So with that, I'll turn it back over to the media for questions that you might have.
The governor still has control of roughly $800 million in federal dollars. Does this take that into account or not?
It does not. The budget that you have before you is literally some apportionment reforms, some revenue from revolving funds, from the stabilization fund, and from the rainy day fund. Their state portion will be about $844 million, and then there will be direct appropriations to higher ed, and even municipalities will have some, or counties over 500,000, 1.5 billion total coming into the state, and then reductions coming off of each one of those. We have reached out looking for an executive and legislature summit to discuss how to employ those funds. Right now, that's still up to the governor and his directions of the utilization for the CARES Act.
So the governor has not responded to that request to sit down and discuss?
I haven't had contact with him myself, no.
On this budget itself, do you all have an agreement with the governor's office on this budget?
I'm going to follow up also with your question. We both asked for to be a part of that. We have not been. If you watch JCAB today, we'll be putting forth a bill that will require daily updates of how the money's being spent on the $800 million, and so we'll be able to see where the money's going. We want some transparency out of the governor's office. We've asked to be involved, and so far we've received just crickets from the letter that we sent to them. There's been no reply. Yes, sir, your question.
I'm sorry, I was just asking, do you all have an agreement with the governor on this particular budget, and where this office is?
I'm going to follow up also with your question. We both asked for to be a part of that. We have not been. If you watch JCAB today, we'll be putting forth a bill that will require daily updates of how the money's being spent on the $800 million, and so we'll be able to see where the money's going. We want some transparency out of the governor's office. We've asked to be involved, and so far we've received just crickets from the letter that we sent to them. There's been no reply. Yes, sir, your question.
I'm sorry, I was just asking, do you all have an agreement with the governor on this particular budget, and where this office is?
You know, the governor walked out of negotiations to his staff in mid-March. The Constitution, Article 5, Section 55, tells the legislature it's your duty to write the budget. And as the speaker talked about earlier, we have done our duty constitutionally this year.
Get into the topic on my every average Oklahoman performance. Can you, thank you, Sean, can you tell us a little bit about, I think it's 2741, that changes some apportionments for this next fiscal year, and then makes some other changes for the subsequent fiscal year, and then for the subsequent, 6, 7 years, I can't remember. Can somebody explain that to us in a way that we can explain it?
There's basically three apportionment reforms. There are two that deal with the additional funding that goes into pensions. The bill I believe you're referring to would be for TRS. Starting back in 2003, the legislature took on the responsibility and duty of putting additional funding into teachers' retirement. Started out at 3.54%, went all the way up to 5% currently of income tax, sales tax, and use tax that we take portions off the top and send over there to the pension. Since 2006, we looked up yesterday evening, overall on the pensions, including fire, police, and law enforcement, which is going to be a different bill. But basically the framework on all of those pensions is taking a reduction of 25% for 2 years of the additional funding that the legislature places there, and then paying that amount of money back in a 5-year period of additional 5%. So for TRS, we're going to reduce that additional funding that we give annually, which it will get money every year just like it does currently, to 3.75%, and then going back, starting in 3 years, we'll go back to 5.5% going into that additional funding. The other bill in retirement are for the insurance premiums, firefighters, police, and law enforcement. Same thing, reducing 25% of that, sending all of those retirements to 1017 fund for education, and then making back up an additional 10% over 5 years to fulfill anything that was displaced at this time. I will point out those apportionments have been in discussion for a long time, ever since I've been in the building. Once those pensions reach the 80% mark in private sector, that's considered fully funding. Those off the top need to be readdressed to new priorities, but this is the additional money. There's no touching of the corpus or the actual employee or employer's contributions. This is the state's additional money that we're putting in.
So when we look at those reforms, and I appreciate the question, as the chairman pointed out, there was a need in our state at one time that said we've got to beef up those retirement systems. And so this was new money that was added in 2003 and 2004 and continue to add. This year, we're not touching the corpus. We're simply diverting 25% of the state's contribution into that retirement system for teachers. If we look into the insurance premium, 36% of that goes to fire. We have 14% that would go to the police, and the 5% into OLers. And so 55%. And after we do that for 2 years, then we'll return that, and it will take us, again, increasing that to about 65%. It is something that we did as a legislator years ago, and I speak in the editorial we, that said we've got to help the pension systems. Today, we need to help education. And so that is 100% fund. So every dollar that we're taking out of those funds goes right into the 1017 fund. And you'll notice in the GA bill, and Mark pointed this out from the House last night, that this is the first year that the fiscal staff has been writing that we're actually putting more money into the 1017 fund than we are into the GA on education. And that helps us to make sure that it is 100% money going in and to fund education. Still a great priority for us as we move forward.
As a note with that, on teachers' retirement, the 5% of income tax, sales, and use tax last year was over $300 million additional funding. There will be well over $200 million of additional funding going in this year. That line item for 25% will be about $73 million for this year's budget, and planning for FY22, If we need that funding as well, will be additional $73 million that we'll have for 22 as well. You haven't got to that question, but I will tell you, looking at what would be available if this is a prolonged recession, somewhere in the neighborhood of about $600 million would be available for FY22 within savings of the rainy day fund, stabilization fund, the portion of reforms, and just still money available within the state coffers to fund FY22.
And just, I'm sorry to take up the time on a follow-up, but the obvious, I guess, question would be, the legislature, I believe, has, the House unanimously advanced the cost of living adjustment bill. The Senate is looking at that. It looks like this gives some flexibility to do both potentially, but so can you talk about what that priority is, and then what has been the effect on the pension systems from the market volatility that we've seen in this crisis?
Thank you. We do appreciate the House sending us the COLA bill, and greatly, and we are discussing it. Want to make it perfectly clear, and we did with our members last night, that there is no policy agreement on this budget. And we're going to talk about the COLA bill. We will continue to have discussions about that, but this budget is not based upon us passing a COLA over inside of the Senate. We are interested in examining that. And Trey, your question, and I talked to Tom Spencer this week, if we look at a snapshot in time, which is very difficult right now on all pension systems, they're just simply down. But in your pension systems, it's used on a 5-year smoothing average. And so we're still only looking at probably about a 1.2, 1.5% impact up on the systems. We're in a very difficult and unique time in our country. For instance, whenever that we look at postponing our income tax from April the 15th over into July the 15th. The estimates that we had coming out was like $477 million. So you talk to the tax commission, they have no idea. There's no other state who's ever done this. We've never done it federally. We don't know what that impact is going to be. And so for us to go back and say what the markets are going to be in a year or 2 years, we don't know. I'm of the opinion, and the reports that I've read, is that our economy will be bouncing back. And if our economy bounces right back, even though this bill talks about a 2-year apportionment, it may be we just need it 1 year, and then we're right back up next year. We just want to make sure that we're covered as we go forward. So I wanted to make trace 2 points. The COLA conversation is not dead on the Senate side. We're still having lively discussions. There are some that are very much for it, and there are some who are not. But it's why also it is in our agreement with the House that this budget is not tied, or this pension reform is not tied to us passing a COLA over in the Senate.
I will second that. As far as there is no policy that was negotiated within the budget, especially, typically in a normal year, there is some policy tied along with the budget. Once the numbers changed for the 3rd time, we come back in and said, all right, all policies off the table. The budget's a budget. We need to get down to the business of the people to stabilize core services. And so there is no policy that was tied to this budget, either chamber back and forth.
I did notice that you're taking $6.5 million out of digital transformation. I'm also noticing there's no Democrats up there. Should the governor veto this, will you have enough votes for a veto override?
I do appreciate the question, but if you notice, we also took 6.5 out of several other agencies in addition to that. And so we don't want you to think that we're picking on them individually when we go through. We needed money. Over the last few years, we did the revolving funds. We feel like we've got a good budget, and on the Senate side, I am very, very confident that we can get a 2/3 vote on this budget as we give the budget to the governor.
I would concur on the House side. We took 6.5 from insurance, 6.5 from the Secretary of State, 8 million from tourism. There's plenty of other revolving funds that we utilized as well, of money that was not being utilized in the FY20 process currently.
Do you think you'll have the votes?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. On On the Sooner Care 2.0, the range of estimates through this session have been from 129 million to 247 million. We spent 3 hours last Thursday with the Healthcare Authority. They believe a solid estimate is 164 million. So with 4% on SHOP, that is 134 million. There is also a bill that will be coming this week through JCAB, allowing the utilization of some funding that is in stabilization fund to help fill that gap as well. One thing that you might remember last year, we created the provider rate preservation fund, and the increase on FMAP, we saved 17.94% of the increase last year. We're planning on doing the same for this year, except with the Healthcare Authority. We're utilizing that funding as well for the Sooner Care 2.0. So we've got the funding built into the budget for Sooner Care 2.0 of the estimate of 164 million. There is additional increases for the unemployment. During that 3-hour meeting that we had with Healthcare Authority, they're using a stagnant number of unemployment rate of 13.5% for the full year. We believe that number will change, but we took their number of 164 million and built the budget off of that, so the funding is there. We feel very comfortable with the budget and funding Sooner Care 2.0.
Also, if you look at the numbers, they're real. Some of the plans that came out earlier was that we could use, like some of the 6.2% additional SHOP for the COVID. That money's going away at the end of June, and so it just doesn't seem financially responsible to use that part of the Sooner Care 2.0. Also, on the provider rate preservation plan, they're down for about 27 million. Didn't seem possible to use that. That's kind of a one-time money. And so therefore, we want to make sure as the legislature that we're able to present to the governor, if you want to go ahead and expand Sooner Care 2.0, you have SHOP at 4%, and you take the balance out of the revenue stabilization fund. That's real money, and we can move forward if that's what he chooses to do.
You talked about the budget being created, specifically does that apply to the education side of things as well? You also mentioned, if you could talk a little bit more about how education actually might be coming out with more money.
Let Senator Thompson get right into the exact numbers, but if you look at the 2.5% reduction of appropriations, which is roughly 78 million, coming into the State Department of Education through CARES is roughly 161 million, it's 160.9. The governor has direct funding for K-12 funding 39.9, so basically 78 million reduction in appropriations, but 200 million more in overall funding. So, not counting the government, 39.9 million, education will have approximately 2.69% increase in state and federal funding over last year, even with a reduced appropriation.
Explaining here in detail. Last month at the organization meeting, the governor said we didn't put education at 120, then after 21, we got to cut 7.5%. I know this is explained here, but in layman's terms, how are we able to do a 3% cost of cut compared to the 50%?
Well, I had a lot of trouble following that math as well. We did use the governor's number for reductions from the February certification to our appropriations authority of 8.2 billion, reduced that by 1.366 billion. In our creative and innovative way, we've come up with 866 million of revenue. So the 95% number for GR, there is some funding that would be in 1017, and then of course with the lottery. As you break all that down, we come up of a number short of about 296 million from hitting the appropriation authority. So the overall budget is 7.8 million. After the Board of Equalization meeting, and the governor had the slides that showed a 7.5% cut, I never could get the math to add up. But I did take the number of the reduction, and we started there and worked through it. So that would be more of a direct question for the governor's office on the 7.5% cut. I can just tell you, based on this balanced budget and our constitutional duty, the common cut, not across the board, but a common cut of reduction for most agencies is 4 or less. So.
I'm glad that you were intrigued by the 7.5%, so were we. Whenever we began to look at just not putting any money into it, you're looking at about 18% cut. As with Chairman Wallace, we began to ask for information from that day forward. How do we substantiate that cut? I am still not convinced that's the true number. However, whenever you had your Board of Equalization vote, and General Hunter was the only one who abstained from that vote, the remainder of those who voted, and I've talked to the majority of them, voted without any evidence behind that vote. We don't have that luxury in the legislature. We have to look at what money is out that we can choose from, what reforms we can make, and be able to keep the core services whole. And so we went ahead with the number from the governor's letter, said that's where we'll start. I believe we'll be back here in February, the economy picks back up. Okay, let's go back and see what we can do to make things better. The economy doesn't pick back things up, we're ready for it with that particular number to be able to move forward. So we had to move off of 7.5. As the chairman said, we're looking at 4, but if you get into the courts, keep in mind the courts have been shut down, not been collecting fines, fees, and so they will have a positive number on the budget, and we'll still be looking at the remainder of this fiscal year, just getting them out of this fiscal year. So across the board, any cut is irresponsible. And so you have to look at each agency by agency, what are your needs? And that's what your subcommittee chairs on both the House and the Senate do a great job of looking back, what happens at this particular cut? What happens at 3? What happens at 5? What happens at 10? And because the main thing is we do not want to hurt the core services nor the people of Oklahoma in any cuts that we make.
The compensation board for judicial pay is statutory board. They recommended a 9.23% increase for this year. If the legislature takes no action, it goes into effect. So through negotiations and basically the state of the economy and the budget that we're in, we ended up agreeing to fund about half of that at 4.5% increase, not the full funding. I will speak personally from my belief. I think that we should fund and pay all branches of government a fair compensation. So I'm not opposed to giving the judges a pay raise at all, based on the budget that we have. Keep in mind that judicial pay also impacts DA pay. They get paid 98% of judge pay. So when you look at the breakdown through the courts and DAs, it has an impact throughout the full budget. If we gave the full 9.23% increase, that would have been a total of $5 million additional dollars in this year's budget. As a compromise, based on the budget that we had, the amount of revenue that we had to work with, we settled on 4.5%, and that will be in effect for the DAs as well. No, all judges gets 4.5% increase.
You'll see a revision coming out. That was inadvertently left out in Craft. And Trey, if there's ever a day that you don't talk to somebody that has two different contradicting views, that's really passionate on both sides, stop by the office. Not a problem.
One real quick, Senator Creek, your thoughts on coming back today and what the length of the session will be?
Length of the session is anyone's guess, but I hope we can get done in 2 or 3 weeks. We have not made an agreement to that end. We have work to do, and signing dies the last Friday in May. We will continue that. We obviously still have a special session open as well to deal with the catastrophic health emergency issue. So it's hopefully we can get our work done quickly. The biggest part of our work is what we're announcing today in the budget agreement. And so this is the most important thing that we do, is getting this done, and I'm glad we have an agreement here. We still have some priority policy that we need to get to the governor's desk, and hopefully we get that done in an expedited manner.
Going back to the capital today, following in line with kind of the state of the as well, something you guys pretty much unanimously.
Yeah, we worked. It's been a pleasure working with my counterpart, Speaker McCall. We've come into an agreement on how to operate the building, safety protocols for staff and the public. We were very pleased that the University of Oklahoma Medical Center worked with us to come up with some of those protocols that you saw at the door when you were coming in. It's important that we come back here, especially with something as important as the budget. We've been able to work very efficiently using team meetings for confirmations. We've been able to have conference calls and phone calls. There's been some of us that have been coming up to try to put the final touches on the budget. The budget chairs have been up here a lot. And so to bring the public back in to finish this session out strong is extremely important. I can only speak for the Senate. Yes, we suspended the rules as long as the emergency order is in place. Members can vote remotely, either remotely from their office or remotely via Teams from their house or home office. That only applies to the state Senate on that. I don't want to speak